Bobby Ryan's an interesting case. Another interesting case is, of course, Erik Karlsson. Now, why would I be wearing a Karlsson jersey? Because captaincy, Ottawa, everything, it all ties into Bobby Ryan in some manner. Bobby Ryan, the number 2 draft pick in 2005, we don't need to talk about who was number 1 that year. Not important. Number 2 was Bobby Ryan for the Anaheim Ducks. He made his debut in the NHL in 07-08, played 23 games, 5 goals, 5 assists, and he was envisioned as a future star for the Ducks. He played with Getzlaf and Perry a lot when he was there. One of the best lines in the league. 2008-2009, he played 64 games, 31 goals, 26 assists, 57 points. He had arrived, and this was the first of 4 straight 30-goal seasons with the Ducks. 09-10, 81 games played, 35 goals, 29 assists, 64 points. So he's coming out of his entry-level contract. That means time to sign another one. September 24th of 2010, he signs a 5-year, $25.5 million contract. So he gets a $5.1 million cap hit, 2-time 30 goal scorer. Seems relatively safe. 2010-2011, plays 82 games, 34 goals, 37 assists, 71 points. Pretty good season for a guy who just signed that big contract. 2011-2012, 82 games, 31 goals, 26 assists, 57 points. So you can look and see that his points per game went down. However, his goal totals stayed around the same. And 4 straight 30-goal seasons. Nothing to sneeze at there. So 2011-2012 came and went. 2012-2013 arrives, and that is the lockout-shortened season. He only plays 48 games. 11 goals, 19 assists, and 30 points. Now the Caps have, or the Ducks had a cap crunch. And that was around the idea that they had to pay Getzlaf, they had to pay Perry, and so Bobby Ryan was going to be the odd man out. That $5.1 million a year looks kind of expensive. July 5th, he was traded. So July 5th of 2013, he was traded for Jacob Silfverberg, Stefan Noesen, and a 2014 first, which became Nick Ritchie. So pretty good draft pick there. And at the time, Silfverberg was showing signs of what he would become, what he is now. Noesen never quite lived up to his first-round draft pick billing. But it's a trade that Anaheim would redo right now. Absolutely, yes, 100%. And I think it's a trade that if Ottawa could go back, they probably wouldn't do. And I remember at the time thinking it was an odd trade. Because I thought Silfverberg alone was a pretty good player. And getting Bobby Ryan, I didn't know how well he'd fit in Ottawa. So he arrives when Daniel Alfredsson leaves. This is where the captain connection comes in. Alfredsson's left. He plays 70 games that first year, 23 goals, 25 assists, 48 points. The day that he arrives in the trade is the same day that Daniel Alfredsson was signed by the Detroit Red Wings. And there were a lot of parting shots fired by Alfredsson at the organization at that point. It was a highly contentious exit, and he went to Detroit to win a cup and all this. So that year after, there was some pressure on Bobby Ryan. October 2nd of 2014, they signed Bobby Ryan to a 7-year, $50.75 million contract. Now, my theory at the time for why they signed Ryan to a $7.25 million cap hit, coming out of a season that he hadn't really lived up to that advanced potential. And remember, they signed this before he was going to become a free agent. So it was about a year out. But they did this on the eve of opening night because Spezza had been traded to Dallas July 1st, 2014. This was my theory at the time, and I still believe this. They lost Alfredsson, who'd been captain. They lost Spezza, who'd been captain. A lot of guys are leaving town, and what they're getting back is not making people feel very happy in Ottawa. So, to me, Bobby Ryan's huge contract was made in part to tell fans, hey, we're going to stay on this. And at the time, Bobby Ryan said all the right things about it. He wanted to commit long-term. He wanted to start a family there. He believed that Ottawa was the right place for him. This organization was on its way up. And a young Erik Karlsson's named captain coming out of that as well. And he's talking at 24 years of age about how they're building to something and something great's going to happen with Ottawa. 2014, 2015, right after signing that contract. It hasn't kicked in yet. 18 goals, 36 assists, 54 points. That's not good. So his totals go down, before the contracts even kicked in. So when the contract kicked in 2015, 2016, there was already some talk about, so was Bobby Ryan overpaid. He played 81 games in 2015, 2016, scored 22 goals, 34 assists, 56 points. The totals aren't bad, but again, because of that contract, it makes it look worse than what it is. He's a 20-goal scorer who's being paid along the lines of what he would have got paid for these seasons here. So this is where, when people talk about contracts now and how managers are trying to pay for what you're going to do and not for what you've done, and then there's that argument as well of, well, when a guy's in his prime, you never know when a guy's prime is going to end. You have no idea. And Bobby Ryan, number 2 overall draft pick, 4 straight 30-goal seasons, everything looks great. And this is why with long-term contracts, they all have risk. Some of them, you just can't move them. There's nothing you can do with it. And in the case of Bobby Ryan's, it has been that issue. The contract kicked in, as I said, the year after, 2016-2017. He only played 62 games, got 13 goals, 12 assists, 25 points. And it's right here that contract becomes an albatross. It's got too many years left. Cap hit's too high. 2017-2018, 62 games played, 11 goals, 22 assists, 33 points. And again, remember, coming through the 16-17 season, this is where people are like, could Vegas grab Bobby Ryan in the expansion draft? And I'm like, no. And then I would hear people, when I said that'd be ridiculous, people saying, well, he's a 4-time 20-goal scorer and he's had 20 goals 6 times. So if they're looking for goals, Bobby Ryan would be a perfect pickup, to which I said, 13. He had 13 that year, and he had 11 the year after. So Vegas made the right move not picking him up from Ottawa. 2018-2019, the season that we just finished this past April, 78 games played, 15 goals, 27 assists, 42 points. Honestly, it was a better season than the previous 2. And it may sound like faint praise, maybe it kind of sort of is, but it was a better year for him than the previous 2 seasons. So Bobby Ryan came into this year with that contract, with still 2 years left in it, and definitely the impression that his contract is kind of being kept around because that keeps him above the cap floor. So Ottawa now has gone from, when he signed, they were a team that lost some big name players, but they were still spending money. And now they're a team that's not spending money, and he's keeping them above the cap floor. Now, he's played 10 games this year. He's been a healthy scratch, of course. 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. He is on pace for a career low in points, potentially. I'm saying potentially because it's still too early to say, oh, well, because of what that prorates out to, he would definitely beat that. Well, not necessarily. He's on pace for 8 goals if he played 80 games, and it doesn't look like he's going to. 819 games played overall, 250 goals, 301 assists, 551 points in his career. Bobby Ryan got paid here, and to me it was Ottawa wanted to change the narrative from everybody wanting out to, hey, look, somebody wants to stick around long term. I honestly think if Spezza hadn't been traded and Alfredsson hadn't left, I don't know that Bobby Ryan gets that contract. And it's one of those questions that I don't know that we'll have an answer to. The contract expires in 2021, so if anybody's waiting to see if Ottawa's going to move it and look for a rental, that'd be next year. There's no point buying the contract out right now. Again, it keeps the caps above, or it keeps caps. Because I'm thinking about the salary cap, I keep saying caps. It keeps the Senators above the cap floor. So he's in a really uncomfortable position. He is no longer the 30-goal scorer. He knows that he's not worth $7.25 million based on his current output. That's why he laughed and said, well, I like my contract. I enjoy it. I make my money, kind of thing. And hey, thanks for the honesty, Bobby Ryan. The thing is, Ottawa's not going to be looking to really trade that contract either. And he may end up having the same situation with him that Louis Eriksson's been in Vancouver, where he ends up just being a healthy scratch, despite all the money he makes. So for Bobby Ryan, I guess the question I have with him is, is this him winding down his career, or are we going to see him end up somewhere else? Could he end up back in Anaheim on a league minimum contract in the year 2021? Could he end up being one of those guys that if he's a free agent in 2021, does he sign with like a brand new expansion team in Seattle? It goes, yeah, well, we'll give him a shot and see if he makes the roster. Or does he end up being one of those guys who is a professional tryout in 2021? He's not old by hockey standards. He's definitely been behind. The one thing I'll say for him this year is he's shown he's willing to drop the gloves if he needs to. He's willing to change his game. He's willing to play whatever role the Senators ask of him. And right now, it appears that he is on the cusp. And he admits, when they ask him, are you worried about your job with the team? He says, yes. And again, that honesty is appreciated. Some players, it really goes to their heads, and I don't get the feeling that it has with Bobby Ryan. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and where this ends up. So is he going to be a healthy scratch for about 30, 40 games this year for Ottawa? Does he play his way back into the lineup? Does he have too much talent overall to be sitting him up in the press box? Does he make too much money to be sitting him in the press box? Let me know your thoughts. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.